Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are talking about Tesla's upcoming 2020 shareholder meeting, the Cybertruck appearance on Jay Leno's garage, Tesla being initiated for coverage by a new analyst, new Gigafactory news outside of the US, and a couple other quick topics as well. I am recording just before market close today, but right now Tesla's up about 1.9% on the day versus the Nasdaq up about 0.4%. Alright, we'll start off with the shareholder meeting. Yesterday in an SEC filing, Tesla announced that they will be holding their 2020 annual shareholder meeting on July 7th, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. Tesla does plan to hold this event in person in Mountain View, California, so kind of interesting that they are sticking with California despite all the drama that we've had the last few weeks. And about doing the event in person, Tesla says, quote, "Although we currently intend to hold the 2020 annual meeting on July 7th, 2020 and in person, we will continue to monitor public health and travel safety protocols required or recommended by federal, state, and local governments. If necessary or advisable, to protect our personnel and stockholders, we will change the date, time, location, and or format of the 2020 annual meeting. If we do so, we will publicly announce any such changes in advance, such as through a press release and or filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission." End quote. Regardless of any of that though, Tesla will live stream this. They've always live streamed it in the past, and it's kind of nice because unlike the quarterly earnings call, this is more than just an audio stream, they do video as well. And the shareholder meeting does tend to be pretty interesting for Tesla. They tend to dive pretty deep on where they've been the last couple of years and where they're heading. The big takeaway from last year's meeting was kind of the hints that Tesla was dropping around getting into battery cell manufacturing. Obviously, we've talked a lot about that over the last year. So this is a really nice event for us to look forward to. And if you want a flavor of what it's like, you can watch the 2019 meeting on Tesla's YouTube channel. The structure of the meeting is generally they do sort of the proxy voting stuff first. So they have 7 different proposals this year, which we'll talk about in a second. That all gets taken care of really quickly in the first few minutes of the meeting. And then Tesla generally brings on Elon Musk and maybe a few other executives to have a more lengthy discussion about the business, and they do a Q&A. In the past, they have taken questions from the audience as well as from Twitter, and I believe from say.com, so I would expect a similar process this year to solicit those questions. Alright, so taking a quick look at those 7 different proposals, these are the proposals that will be voted on by Tesla shareholders. If you own Tesla stock, you'll get a proxy form from your broker that would allow you to vote. It's always a good thing to exercise your right to vote. However, in general, what's going to happen is whatever Tesla's board thinks is going to pass based on them being in control of a significant portion of Tesla shares. The first 3 proposals this year are Tesla proposals, while the last 4 are stockholder proposals. Unsurprisingly, the board is recommending voting for the first 3 and against the last 4. The first 3 are pretty standard things. They're about board of directors elections, executive compensation, and their public accounting firm. But the stockholder ones are always the more interesting ones. In this case, the proposal number 4 we'll talk more about. It's about advertising. 5, 6, and 7 are about the voting structure, employee arbitration, and reporting on human rights. On that last point, I think everybody is in favor of transparent reporting on human rights. Tesla's argument against this specific proposal is, quote, "Tesla is confident in our efforts regarding and commitment to human rights in our operations, and that our publicly available policies and periodically updated disclosures already provide robust and transparent information on these matters. Accordingly, we do not believe that additional duplicative reporting is warranted." End quote. So we'll leave that there, and then I did want to talk about Proposal 4 because that was about advertising. Kind of interesting, the proposal is that Tesla spend at least $50 per car on an advertising budget. We've talked a lot about advertising. I think most of the Tesla community is pretty against it, but there are a lot of voices that say, well, it would be good for Tesla to be able to educate more people. They can advertise differently, they can advertise effectively, and that can help move the mission forward. I'm kind of on both sides. I actually wouldn't mind if Tesla advertised. I don't think they need to right now, and I understand why Elon is against it. From a first principles point of view, it is better to put that money into the vehicle, but it's also not that straightforward. If advertising could actually generate you more profit through allowing your vehicles to be sold at a higher price, then maybe you can actually take more of that profit, put more of that profit into expanding more quickly, thus accelerating the advent of sustainable energy through advertising. Well, then perhaps it would be a mistake not to advertise. And the reason I say allow you to capture a higher price is because I think a lot of people's argument against advertising is, okay, well, Tesla's production constrained, they shouldn't advertise. Well, we talked about this. Demand is not one concept. There are regionality and time factors here. And just like price drops, advertising can be used as a lever to help smooth out some of those demand pockets. Is a price drop better than advertising for the final customer? Yes. But the follow-on question there is, what would Tesla have been able to do with that profit if they hadn't dropped the price? Well, advertising is one of those things, and no matter how people feel about it, it can definitely drive demand. If it drives demand more cost effectively than a price drop, which I'm not saying is the case, by the way, I'm just talking through this at a theoretical level, then Tesla could potentially capture more profit and deploy that profit to build more factories more quickly or to further vertically integrate in the supply chain, things like that. And yes, I do realize Elon has said in the past that they are not capital constrained, they're more constrained by engineering talent. But at the same time, Tesla has also raised billions of dollars of capital after Elon has said that, so it's not exactly that clear cut. Everything isn't about money though. There are ethical considerations to advertising. I think it's important and nice that Tesla actually thinks about things like that. And though it does help support me, I do have my own problems with the advertising business model. But as with most things in life, I think there's a lot of nuance here as well. There's a lot of education that comes along with understanding Tesla and their mission. Why would Tesla keep people from being educated on that simply because they don't want to pay a little bit of money for that to happen? Tesla does a great job of marketing with a really small budget. They get tons of free press all the time. We'll talk about some of that in a minute. That's an extremely important part of Tesla as a business case. But that doesn't mean that spending some money to accelerate that awareness and accelerate that education of a wide variety of people wouldn't be a net positive to Tesla or a net positive to the world. After saying all that, it probably sounds like I'm for advertising or for this proposal. And that's not the case. I'm just for open-mindedness, and Elon has expressed in the past that maybe in the future they'll consider advertising. They just don't think it's the time yet. And when it comes down to it, that's really why I would be against this proposal. Mandating that Tesla spends a specific amount of money per car on advertising? If that's what you want from your company, you should not be invested in that company. You should have the faith in management to determine those decisions. They have way more information than we do. If you're not comfortable with their decision-making, don't own the stock. It's as simple as that. That doesn't mean you have to agree with every little thing, but to try to force a mandate on the things that you may not agree with, that's clearly not a path to success. All right, let's move on a little bit. I mentioned how Tesla does such a great job of marketing in general and getting a lot of free press. We have two great examples of that this week with the Cybertruck and Elon Musk appearing on Jay Leno's garage, and the SpaceX launch that was supposed to happen on Wednesday, which generates a lot of free press for Elon Musk and for Tesla, especially with the use of the Model X vehicles as the couriers for the astronauts. That launch, of course, was scrummed due to weather, but the next opportunity for launch will be on this Saturday, 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time. In terms of the reach of these things, they're pretty big. I mean, the Jay Leno video on YouTube already has 6.6 million views. This was uploaded by CNBC Prime, and that is their most viewed video ever, after being up for just a day, and they've had a channel for something like 5 years. SpaceX's stream of the launch has 8.5 million views, and obviously the launch didn't even happen. And that's just SpaceX's stream. That doesn't count all the coverage by other media outlets. So yeah, Elon and Tesla do get a lot of free advertising. I was curious how this would impact the search interest in Tesla, so I looked at Google Trends for the search term Tesla over the last 7 days. And in the US, the search index peaked at 100 right at 3 o'clock Central Time on Wednesday, the 27th, which is right around the time the SpaceX launch was going to happen. That index of 100 at that time means that was the peak search interest for Tesla at the week, and relative to the rest of the search interest for the week, it was about 2.5 to 3 times what Tesla was normally at. One of the interesting things here is that Google Trends also shows the related queries for individual search terms, so it shows what terms are rising, and the top 5 are all related to the SpaceX launch. So the first one is Tesla launch today, the second is Tesla price cut, so it makes sense around that time. The third was Tesla space launch, fourth Tesla rocket launch, and 5 Tesla launch. So kind of funny to see those search terms. And a lot of people pointed out that the timing of Tesla's price drop was probably related to the SpaceX launch. As we can see here with what search terms were rising around this time, I think that theory makes a lot of sense. The Cybertruck Jay Leno episodes seem to lead to a little bit less search interest on Google Trends. If we look at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time, which was when the episode aired, Tesla did spike a little bit, again from that baseline that was maybe an index of 30 or 40, up to an index of 57, but definitely not the same type of spike that we saw from the launch. If we look at Cybertruck as a search term, the search interest roughly doubled from the previous index levels. Search interest for Cybertruck overall, though, compared to Tesla as a search term is quite a bit lower, only has about 5% of the searches that Tesla does. Anyway, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that on Saturday, especially if the launch does happen. Next today, we have a new company picking up coverage of Tesla stock. This is from Daiwa. They have initiated coverage of Tesla with an outperform rating and a $910 price target on the stock. Their analyst, Jairam Nathan, said that Tesla is, quote, on the cusp of replicating its success in the US EV market to potentially larger markets in China and Europe, end quote. And he's forecasting Tesla to deliver 450,000 units in 2020. Of course, my estimates are higher than that. And then what's really interesting here is something I've been harping on for, I feel like, a couple months now. Nathan's $910 price target is based on a discounted cash flow through 2030. By 2030, he expects electric vehicles to be 20% of total automotive sales, and he expects 3 million vehicles only from Tesla, or 15% of the electric vehicle market. So despite my best efforts to get people to understand how far off that is from Tesla's ambitions, it doesn't seem to be having much of an impact quite yet. Remember, Elon said he'd be very shocked if the compound annual growth rate for Tesla's vehicles was under 40%. That means 15 million vehicles in 2030. Personally, I would not be comfortable forecasting that Elon Musk is going to miss a forecast that he would be very shocked to even be as low as, and then he's going to miss that by another 80%. I think people should understand that that 3 million forecast is actually a way bolder forecast than just going with Elon Musk and saying Tesla will do 15 million. I don't recall many times when Elon has missed production estimates by 80%. And by the way, that forecast still earned a $910 price target for Tesla. Next up today is a report from Automotive Management Online. They published an article today with the headline of, quote, UK government seeking site for sprawling Tesla EV gigafactory, end quote. Okay, that would be pretty interesting. Obviously, most of the gigafactory focus in terms of the next one has been in the US. Elon has confirmed that that will be the case, but we don't also know that Tesla's not looking elsewhere for another factory. However, Elon has said in the past that the Brexit situation has made a UK gigafactory too risky. And I think another question here would be space in terms of what Tesla intends to do with whatever they're looking for here in the UK, reportedly, because AM Online said, quote, an article published in Property Week said that the Department for International Trade is seeking a 4 million square foot site to accommodate an electric vehicle research, development, and manufacturing plant for Elon Musk's car brand, end quote. 4 million square feet would be about 92 acres, which would be quite a bit smaller than the locations for Tesla's other gigafactories. Tesla has almost 3,000 acres of land for Gigafactory Nevada. Gigafactory Shanghai land area is much smaller at 210 acres, roughly, with the Giga Berlin being in the middle at about 740 acres. So this area would be less than half the size of Tesla's smallest Gigafactory location. Doesn't mean they couldn't put a Gigafactory on that size of land, obviously they could, and Tesla's working really hard to reduce the footprint of their manufacturing process. But I thought that size was worth pointing out because I do expect this will probably get picked up and probably reported on pretty widely, even though we don't really have all that much information on it right now. I'll be curious to hear people's thoughts on that in the comments, especially those of you that live in the UK. But that'll mostly do it for today. The other thing I just want to note quickly is that somebody on Tesla Motors Club's forums did say that Ron Barron is expected to appear on CNBC on Monday, June 1st. They have a big stake in Tesla, so usually that is part of the conversation. So something to keep an eye out for. And then I just want to say a huge thank you to all the warm feedback that you guys gave about the street announcement yesterday. I wasn't exactly sure how that would be taken, but you guys have been so supportive, and it really just means a lot to me that you're trusting me that this is a good move for me and for all of us. So really appreciate that. Appreciate you guys that have started to engage over on that side as well. I really think it's going to be a nice addition for us. So thank you for that. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And I'll see you on Monday for the June 1st episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.